Okay, now let's move on to the third part of communication. You know, there are various types of communication. Let's start with the first one. First one is, I would say it's a set of few types. First one is one-way communication, and the next has to be one-way and two-way, right? So you have one-way communication and two-way communication. Before that, let me tell you, these sets of communication, like, you know, one-way communication, two-way communication, formal, non-formal, all these are usually asked as differentiate between for your exam. I've seen question papers in which they have asked question, differentiate between one-way communication, two-way communication, formal, non-formal, like that. Okay, so let's start with the first one, one-way, two-way. Now, what is one-way? I think I don't have to tell you. One-way means flow is only one way from the communicator to the audience, whereas audience are simply sitting. Okay, this is also known as, the next point, didactic method, D-I-D-A-C-T-I-C, didactic method. Okay, and in didactic method, only one person is talking or communicating, whereas the other person, this is what is usually happening in your lecture classes, right? You're all sitting there with your eyes open, of course, but the mind shut. So the problem with one-way communication is the communication is not actually effective. If it has to be effective, it has to be two-way, right? So two-way means both the communicator as well as the audience are taking part in the process of communication. So I'll be telling you something and you will be asking me doubts, and you'll be actively listening, and you'll be writing down certain things, and whenever you come across any doubt, you can ask me, and you can even question me, madam, don't you think that that is not right? Then I may also think, yeah, right, okay, sorry, what I said there was slightly different. So like that that means it's a two-way process where both are taking part almost equally. Okay, so this is known as Socratic method. So two-way is known as Socratic method. This is what Socrates was doing during olden times. And since di means two, students usually tend to think that didactic is two-way. It's not like that. Okay, didactic is one-way communication, whereas Socratic is two-way communication. Okay, moving on to the second, verbal, and the next has to be non-verbal. So verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now, what is verbal? As the name indicates, verbal means using words. Now, what is non-verbal? That means without using words. So, you might be thinking, is it possible to communicate without words? Of course, yes. How do you communicate without words? Your body language, right? The way you walk, the way you talk, your eyes moving, then your hands, your body, the way you dress. So many things convey a lot about you. Okay, so even without words, it's very possible to communicate with another person using your eyes, your hands. It's possible. That means using gestures, you can communicate to the other person. You don't have to open your mouth at all, right? So you have verbal and non-verbal. So verbal, as I told you, it is using words, and the advantage of verbal is you can persuade someone. That means you can tell them repeatedly, you can tell them something, and finally you can persuade that person to accept it. Finally, he'll say, okay, stop giving me a headache, you close your mouth, I will listen to what you are saying. So what I want to tell you is, verbal is best if you want to persuade someone, okay, and non-verbal is also very important. Now I have a very important question. After that, we'll see the importance of non-verbal communication. See, when you consider verbal and non-verbal, my question is, which one do you think is more? Whenever you are communicating, of course, we communicate daily, right? So, which one is more? Is it verbal or non-verbal? Are you saying verbal? Then you are wrong. It is non-verbal. You know, it is popularly said that 7%, there is something known as 7% rule, and according to the 7% rule, it is said that only 7% is verbal, whereas the rest 93% of your communication is non-verbal. Do you agree with me? Yes. Even if I am talking to you, see my body, my hands, my body, my eyes, it's constantly moving, right? So there is a lot of gestures that I am trying to give you, whereas the words are less, whereas my gestures are more. So same is happening in every communication. Okay, so non-verbal is more than verbal communication. Hereafter, when you try to communicate, you just see how are you trying to give non-verbal communication. Okay.